Hey, it's Irreverent Aegis here, bringing you one of my favorite builds for tanks, the Glass Paladin build. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's a tank that's spec'd out 100% to be a DPS. So with that, let's get into the actual build. I'm running double Ice Staff. Ice Staff's important for the heavy attack taunt. I am running Mother Sorrow as well for all the crit, either an infused or a precise. I'm also running a back bar Ice Staff Maelstrom with infused and the weakening enchant. In terms of monster helms, typically I wear Ice Heart for the crit as well as the damage shield, but if the content allows, I will put on Maw the Infernal for some extra damage. Body, I am going to be running Perfected False Gods mostly. On occasion, I'll swap out for Bloodlord's Embrace because I will be blocking a lot, and the Magicka Restore on that is insane. Once the next patch goes through later in 2020, I will be running Medusa sometimes instead of Mother Sorrow on the weapons and jewelry. And I also have some other options. Instead of Perfected False Gods, I can either run Hollow Fang or Overwhelming. These are going to be important for Magicka sustain, because I will be using a lot of Magicka for both blocking with the Ice Stabs and because all of my abilities are Magicka as well. In terms of skills, typically I'm going to be spamming Crushing Shock. On occasion, I will spam Inner Fire, which is a weird thing to spam, but if there's a lot of targets to taunt, I'll taunt them by spamming that. Bound Aegis is the most important part of this build. That is how you survive heavy attacks and all sorts of other crap. So Bound Aegis to get that extra 40% block mitigation. In terms of ultimates, Temporal Guard will often be on my front bar. It's the Psijic ability that, while slotted, gives you minor protection at all times, so that sometimes is very important, depending on the content. Most of the time I run Greater Storm Atro, but sometimes I will run Aggressive Horn or Reviving Barrier. On the back bar, Crit Surge. That is the other most important skill other than Bound Aegis. This is going to allow me to pretty much stay at full health while taunting and tanking the bosses, because every time I do crit damage, I restore health. And I'm running 4 dots in this build, so I'll be restoring myself quite a bit. I also run Barbed Trap, and again, I do run the 4 dots, including the Boundless Storm, giving me a major resolve as well. On the back bar, sometimes I run Elemental Rage, if I'm not running any other things. Icy Rage gives you immobilization to enemies when it hits them, which is pretty nice for a tank, and if you apply the chilled status effect, then you also apply minor maim to enemies. Flex spots. So Elemental Drain is often used instead of Barbed Trap if we need Major Breach, which you typically do, so if nobody else is running that, I'll run that. I will also run a Twilight Matriarch. I'll have to double bar that as it's a pet. That's important. I don't really run Empowered Ward. I haven't found a use for it, which sounds strange considering I only have about 17,000 health. And again, sometimes I will slot the range taunt as well. In terms of the food that I wear, most of the time it's Bewitched Sugar Skulls. That's Tri-Stat plus health recovery. That's important for the extra stamina because you will roll dodge on this tank more than others for obvious reasons. And for my Parse, I will be wearing the Parse food, Ghastly Eyeball. So I'm going to switch out Crit Surge here for my Parse for Ellie Drain. Obviously in content I'd keep Crit Surge. For potions, I run either Spell Power Pots or I run Tri-Stat Pots. Spell Power Pots obviously give you the Major Sorcery, the Major Prophecy, Magicka Restore, and Major Intellect, and the Tri-Stats give you the 3 stats. So that is important for content. I do run both depending on what I'm doing. With that being said, I'm going to head and show my Parse and show you how much damage this thing can do. The rotation for this Parse is pretty simple. I'm going to hit Ellie Drain, pop a potion, drop my ultimate, run up to the boss, and drop my Barbed Trap, apply both my back bar dots, switch to my front bar, apply both of my front bar dots, and I will be using my Spammable and Crystal Frags whenever it procs. Pretty much I just keep up my dots as often as possible, hit my ultimates when I need to, make sure Ellie Drain's applied, and make sure I use potions. So pretty simple rotation. I do want to mention, because I didn't mention it earlier, that I am a high elf with this build, and I'm running the Shadow Mundus, and I have all 64 points in Magicka. You may be thinking, in content, I'm not going to be doing nearly this much damage, and of course you're right, because I will need to block and use Bound Aegis fairly frequently, depending on the content, but that's okay. I still wanted to show the damage potential of this build, especially since I do have 4 dots running, so I will actually be doing quite a lot of passive damage. You may be thinking, this isn't that viable in difficult content. Well, you would be correct if your skill level isn't very high at tanking. This is a high level of expertise build, and at the time of recording this video, I have completed all but 2 Vet DLC dungeons and half of the hard modes for those Vet DLC dungeons. You know, when they say, why run a healer when we can run 3 DPS instead, I say, why run a tank when we can run 4 DPS instead? So the number's about to pop up. Here we go, and we are at over 36,000.